Hello everyone. So for the past year I have been doing a little experiment using a product called the Augustinus Butter Rich Cream. So this is a very expensive cream, and so I thought that rather than just using it, I would try to find out whether it actually did anything. So what I have been doing is putting this on just half of my face, and the other half I haven't been using it on at all. And other than that, I have been using a variety of different kinds of skincare, but I have been using everything else on both halves of my face. So now that a whole year has passed, I thought that it would be a good time to take stock and to share with you some photos and some footage to see if you think that it has made a difference. And if it does make a difference, then I'm thinking that I will buy some more of this product at the upcoming Sephora sale and continue on. So I was hoping that you could help me out a bit by taking a look at some of the footage and some of the still photographs and letting me know whether you think it has made a difference for me. So first, a little bit of information about me. I'm 59 years old and I have dry and sensitive skin. And I have never had any kind of cosmetic procedures such as injections or surgery, and I don't intend to do that. So I have been experimenting a lot with different kinds of skincare with the hope that I might be able to look a little bit fresher and a little bit younger. And over the past 3 years or so, I have tried more than 1,000 different skincare products. And so I feel like I'm getting a pretty good sense of what works for me and what doesn't work. And one thing that I have found out is that there are certain ingredients that always do irritate my skin, and I know that those are very irritating for many other people as well, so I just don't talk about products with those kinds of ingredients on this channel. So to be a little bit more clear, I have never had any kind of cosmetic procedures at all, from any kind of in-office visit. I've never had any laser treatments or anything like that. And I have also not used any kind of special devices on my face. I have thought a little bit about using something like red light therapy, but I have not pursued that, or at least not yet. I also don't use retinol on my face, and the reason for that is because I have found the very few times that I have even experimented with retinol that my face does react badly to it, and I don't really like the idea of using things on my face that will cause my face to be irritated, even if supposedly that's in search of a greater good. And I also feel like retinol would make my skin more sensitive to the sun, and I feel like in the long term that would probably be pretty bad for my skin, because I do believe that sun is very damaging for the skin. So I just have not tried any kind of retinol at all. I also occasionally will use a very mild form of an AHA, such as lactic acid, but I use very small amounts of that, usually diluted in other products. And I'm not really opposed to the idea of using vitamin C on my skin, but I have not found any products so far that have not irritated my skin and that I feel actually were doing anything. And so that is something that I haven't really been pursuing either. So all in all, that means that all of the things that people tend to consider to be skincare actives are things that I'm not using at all. But I do use quite a wide variety of different kinds of creams and serums on my face. So I use things like bakuchiol, for instance. A lot of the products that I use have peptides in them. And then, of course, an awful lot of the products that I use have moisturizing and hydrating ingredients in them, especially really expensive oils and also things like sodium hyaluronate and squalane. So if you're specifically interested in the things that I have used that I think have been most helpful to me and that I have used the most frequently, I did do a skincare video on my absolute favorite skincare a couple of months ago, so you can take a look at that and see what I have been using the most. So the reason that I started this channel again was because I wanted to see if I could use a skincare and makeup in order to look a little bit fresher or a little bit younger as I got older. So I don't use any kind of filters on this channel, and I also don't use any photoshopping of any of the still photographs or anything else that I'm doing here. So it really is designed to give you as accurate of an impression as possible of what I really look like in the real world. Now, the issue of photoshopping actually brings me to what the impetus for starting this channel was, which is that in 2020, I got some photographs taken with my dog by a professional photographer. And when we went in to look at the proofs, she showed me how she could use photoshopping to remove the dark circles and some of the wrinkles on my face. And then she asked me if I wanted to do that. And I did think that they looked better, and I started to feel bad about the way that my face was looking because of the wrinkles and the dark circles and the discolorations. And so she did do that with some photos, and then when I showed all the photos to my husband, he just looked at them and he said, you know, a lot of these pictures don't even look like you at all. What did you do to them? So at that point, I started to think, you know, maybe it would be time for me to start thinking about using some skincare and some makeup to see if I can look a little bit better as I head toward my 60s. So it had been quite a long time since I had used very much makeup or really focused on skincare at all. I did use makeup on a regular basis when I was younger and working, but it was pretty much always the same thing. And I had not really used any products like that very much at all recently because I was finding that everything that I was using was irritating my skin. So it seemed better to not do that. But I did start to think that, well, maybe I can, if I look around and I try some different things, I can find some things that do work for me and that will actually help me. So I started to try a bunch of different products at that time. And this was right about the time that I think of as sort of the revolution in terms of the beauty industry, where a lot of the clean beauty companies started to offer products that were much higher quality, and a lot of the more mainstream beauty companies started to offer a lot of products that were a lot more clean than in the past. So at the beginning, I did find that an awfully lot of products were irritating my skin, and that an awfully lot of the products were performing very poorly for me. But I would say that over the past 3 years or so since I've been trying products, that so many of them have become quite good, and I do think that they have been helpful. So although I've tried a whole lot of products over the past 3 years, and although some of them are quite expensive and the total amount of money that I've spent has been pretty high, I've kind of had a soft cap in my mind where I just didn't think that it was really something that I wanted to do to spend more than $100 on a particular product. And that is actually not something that I did until I decided to start thinking about buying this Augustinus Botter cream. So my feeling was before that really anything that cost more than $100, that probably most of the money was going to be going to expensive packaging that I didn't need, and to expensive advertising that was pointless, and also to, in a lot of cases, to fragrance that is adding to the cost of the product and that would do nothing but make it more likely that my skin would be irritated by the product. But in 2022, I did start to become interested in the Augustinus Botter line. And the first time that I heard of that was when Victoria Beckham came out with a primer that Augustinus Botter was making for her. And I thought that primer was pretty expensive. But then when I saw the prices of the skincare products, I thought that those were, phenomenally, ridiculously expensive. But then right after that, I started to hear a lot about the company from a variety of different sources. So I felt like I saw an awfully lot of celebrities that said that this was like a holy grail product for them. And I also started to read a lot of magazine articles in beauty type magazines, in fashion type magazines talking about the product. And there was an article just about the company in the New York Times, so I thought that was interesting. And I read that in the TV show called Succession, that the older son, Kendall, that he was obviously kind of a status conscious, and at one point they showed a scene of him, I think this was in season 3, where they showed a scene of him talking in the bathroom on his phone, and they showed his bathroom counter, and the only thing that was on that counter was a bottle of this Augustinus Botter cream and a toothbrush. But the thing that really kind of made me interested in this product and really decided to give it a try is when I heard that Bobbi Brown had become the chief creative advisor or something like that for the company. And I have been a big fan of Bobbi Brown for a while. I think that I really like her attitude towards beauty and towards aging. And I watched her masterclass program as one of the first things that I was influential to me when I was trying to learn more about how to use makeup, again, a few years ago. And I also was one of the first people to start buying from Jones Road, and I joined her little Facebook group, which now has something like 50,000 people in it. And so I've been kind of a fan of hers, and I do think that she looks good for her age. And when I heard that she was doing this collaboration with Augustinus Bader, I kind of feel like if she wasn't really enthusiastic about the products, that she wouldn't probably have become involved in this. She kind of seems to be a little bit busy to be doing stuff like that. But I did see her in a YouTube ad for the product, and she did talk about it a number of times. So that kind of added to the idea that maybe this was something that I wanted to try. Now, of course, I don't have any idea if any of these people are trustworthy. I've never met any of the people from Augustinus Bader. I've never met Bobbi Brown. I don't have any kind of commercial relationship with these companies, except that I do have affiliate links for them. But I've never met any of them, and so it's hard to know if they're legitimate and trustworthy or not. I just started to feel like there was enough different types of information out there that made it seem to me like maybe this was worth pursuing. And it also is the case that of all of the expensive creams that are on the market, almost all of them have things like fragrance in them that make them no-goes for me. So I wouldn't be interested in any of the products that Chanel is offering, or I wouldn't be interested in the La Mer products, because those do include a lot of different ingredients that I'm trying to avoid. Whereas the Augustinus Bader ones seem to be much better in terms of their ingredient list. So if I was going to try something, that seemed like a good one to try. So I was able to get some samples of a few products from Augustinus Bader by using my Sephora points. So I got a sample of the Rich Cream, and I got a sample of their other main cream, which is just called the Cream, and I got a sample of their serum. So I was able to try all of those before I decided to actually spend the money to purchase the product. And I felt like I was able to use all of those products all over my face, including in my eye area, without them causing any irritation. So that, again, made me a lot more confident about spending some money on this product. So unfortunately, it does seem to be fairly difficult to get samples of the Augustinus Bader products unless Sephora just happens to be having them available at a particular point in time. Now, these samples apparently are available all of the time through Augustinus Bader, but they will only give them to you if you are buying something else from the company. And I think that seems really backwards, because I am sure that there's a lot of people that really would like to try these products because they're afraid that they're going to be irritating to their skin, and that they're not able to do that. And it also is the case that Augustinus Bader, at least in terms of their website, they say that they don't accept back any used products. So I guess it's seeming to be the case that if you buy the product from them and you haven't been able to try it out because you haven't been able to get any samples, and then you react to it, there certainly is no guarantee that they're going to give you any money back. So I would feel uncomfortable purchasing under that position also. So I do think that they're making it unfortunately difficult when a lot of people, no matter how much money you have, you don't want to waste it by purchasing something you don't need and that you're not going to be able to use, and that's going to become a source of frustration and disappointment. But I did have a good experience with the samples, and I also did not react at all to the product that I purchased. And it also is the case that Sephora seems to be better at taking things back than at least what the Augustinus Bader site says is their policy. So I think that purchasing the product from either Sephora or another retailer that takes things back probably would be a better strategy. So for instance, I did once have a good experience sending something back to Goop when I reacted to another expensive product that I purchased from them, and they didn't have an issue with that. I imagine that Nordstrom would still take things back, but those companies generally don't have too many sales. so you might not be able to get a discounted price on it if you buy from those other companies. So I purchased this product from the spring 2023 Sephora sale, so it's almost exactly 1 year ago. And I have posted on my YouTube channel a variety of thumbnails over time, on average 1 to 2 thumbnails per week. And so I thought that what I would do is show you the thumbnails that I posted before I started using the product, and then that I would show you the ones of what I looked like as the months went by after I purchased the product. And so you can just kind of get a sense of whether or not you think that my appearance has been changing, and whether or not you think that it's been changing more on one side of my face than it has been on the other. And again, I don't do any retouching of these photographs. It certainly would be very easy for me to, for instance, take the line that goes between my eyebrows away, but that would be really counter to the goal that I have for my channel, which is to talk about whether or not I can use the skincare and makeup to hopefully look a little fresher and a little bit younger, rather than to try to pretend that something is happening when it actually isn't. That would be kind of pointless. Now, before I started this experiment, I did spend some time looking at photos and footage of myself and in the mirror to try to determine whether one side of my face already looked better than the other. I didn't personally see there being much difference, and so I decided that I would put it on the side of my face that I usually sleep on, and I usually sleep on my side, and so I figured that that side is probably under more stress, and I also felt like if either side looked worse, it was probably that one. And if you would like to have an easy way to know when you look at the footage or the photos which side is which, this particular side is the side that I did use the cream on, and then this side is the side that I did not. And on the side that I did not use the cream on, I have a little mole that's right next to my mouth, so you can tell which side that is pretty easily. Now, this wrinkle on my forehead, that is a little bit annoying every time I look at the photographs. So even though that is technically on this side of my face, I did, every time I put the cream on, I would put a little bit on that wrinkle. So that is the only exception. But other than that, I didn't put the cream on this side of my face at all. So when I was thinking about how to design this particular experiment, I was thinking a lot about a professor that I had when I was at Northwestern and studying for my PhD. And he was a sociology professor and an education professor who was a recognized scholar in the area of quasi-experimental design. And this particular course talked about the idea that there are some situations when you want to find out if something has an effect, but you can't design an experimental condition with enough subjects in it to get a statistically significant difference. So, for instance, one example that they talked about was when Sesame Street was introduced back in the 1960s, and the question of whether or not Sesame Street was actually going to be helping students to do better in school when they actually got to school. And so what they did is that the program was introduced in some markets earlier than others. So they did tracking over time, and they looked at how well the kids in these different markets did in school before the show was introduced, and then they introduced the show, and then they tracked those kids as they went through school to see if the ones in the Sesame Street markets did better than the kids where the Sesame Street was not introduced as early for them. And then they were able to suggest that if they couldn't find any other alternative explanations for the findings, and if the kids in the Sesame Street markets did do better, then that gave at least some evidence that maybe that kind of an early intervention was actually helpful in the long term. So that was kind of my thought when I thought about putting on this cream on one half of my face, that I had pretty good data in terms of what both sides of my face look like before I put the cream on, and then I could put it on specifically just on that one side and then measure the changes both really in terms of what I think I look like and what you guys think I look like over time to see if it really makes a difference. And I really can't think of any reason why this half of my face would be looking any different than this half of my face, because I haven't done anything else different. Now, of course, this is not the kind of experimental design that people in the medical community tend to do. The medical community more seems to take the position that if studies do not cost millions and millions of dollars, that they are worthless. And I think that explains a lot about why medical treatments are so expensive, because the only people that are ever going to invest money into doing those studies as if you think you can be making hundreds of millions or billions of dollars if you can get something approved. So a study like this, which is not giving you sort of absolute scientific proof, but which is shedding a little bit of light onto the matter and telling you, well, this might be worth studying, people in the medical community really don't want to do that. And so that's okay. I'm not trying to prove to anyone that this cream works. I don't have any financial investment in that at all. I just thought it was an interesting thing to do because I would like to know for myself whether or not it's worthwhile to continue to purchase it. Now, at first, I wasn't really anticipating that this study would go on for a full year, but for quite a few months, I wasn't really feeling like I was very confident in terms of whether or not there was really a difference. And I also just kind of got in the habit of thinking, well, I got to keep using this on one side of my face because otherwise I got to make a video, and I'm not ready to make a video yet, so we'll just keep going. And somehow, eventually, we got to this point, and now it does seem to be a time for me to buy some more of this product because I seem to be about ready to run out of it, and the Sephora sale is here so I can get a discount on it. And if other people are thinking about buying a product like this, then having this evidence might be helpful for them. So it seemed like a good time to take stock in what's going on. So as I say, this is a very expensive skincare product. It is not the most expensive skincare product that I have seen, but it is one of the ones that I think is really on the high side. So typically a jar of moisturizer is 1.7 ounces, so that is how much is in this cream. And for Augustinus Bader, a jar of that's 1.7 ounces is $300. So that is pretty expensive. It's at least 3 times more than any other night cream or any other kind of makeup product or skincare product that I have ever purchased. So what I actually purchased is what is called the Daily Essential Duo. And so that included this, which is 1.7 ounces, and then it included an extra small container that is 0.5 ounces. So the total amount of money for that kit was $315, and then I got 20% off during the Sephora sale. And I have used 1 or 2 pumps of the large container or maybe 3 pumps of the smaller container at least once a day. And in some cases, I would use it in the morning also. So in the evening, I would always put it on, let it soak in a little bit, and then put my other skincare over the top of it. And then on occasion, I did do that in the morning as well. And so if you calculate it out, then using this on half of my face in the way that I did for the full year turned out to be $21 per month. And so if I did it that same way on both sides of my face, then I guess it would be $42 a month. So that is not cheap, obviously, but it is actually a little bit less expensive than I thought that it was going to be. And so maybe if I decide that it actually did something, that is something that might be sustainable for me in terms of the amount of money that I have available to be spending on things like this with regard to my appearance. So now let's talk a little bit about Augustinus Bader in terms of the company and also the person. So Augustinus Bader, the company, was launched in 2018, and the person that it's named after is a professor and a medical doctor who is a professor at the University of Leipzig. And this is actually one of the oldest universities in Europe, and it seems to have a good reputation as far as I can tell. And some of the alumni from this university include Nietzsche, Goethe, Wagner, and Angela Merkel. So Augustinus Bader is a stem cell researcher, and he has published a lot of papers in what seem to be legitimate journals, and some of his more recent work has been in the field of burn victims. And so what he says is that in studying burn victims, he developed a cream that could be used instead of things like skin grafts for people that had very serious burns. And that it was his goal to get this approved and licensed so that it could be helpful to people. So, for instance, he spent a lot of time in China and some other poor countries, and apparently that is where a lot of people, and especially children, tend to experience burn issues, such as from cooking fires. So he tried to get some people to invest in the research that would be needed in order to bring this burn cream to the market, and he wasn't able to get people to invest in it. And what he has said is that the reason is because, again, as I say, that if people are going to invest a huge amount of money in researching something and that, to an extent that it's going to get approval from the regulatory agencies, then you need to put a whole lot of money into it. And the feeling of the people that would have the money to invest in these products is that there's really not enough money in this market because most of the people that would need that cream live in really poor countries. So he says that he was very sad about that, and I do think that's a very sad story, but it actually sounds legitimately like the healthcare system works to me, so I am not necessarily doubting that that's actually the case. So in 2013, he met a investment banker from France whose name was Charles Rosier. And I guess they just met at some kind of a social party and they started talking. And Professor Botter started talking about the burn cream and how he couldn't get it financed. And then Charles Rosier said, well, would you be able to make a anti-aging cream that would, or a wrinkle cream? And Dr. Botter said, oh yes, why would we want to do that? And so then after that, then Charles Rosier spent several years trying to convince Dr. Botter to produce this cream and then bring it to the market. And then finally, the reason that he said that he agreed to it is because they thought that they could use some of the proceeds from selling the cream to finance this burn cream research. And so finally they developed this anti-aging cream, and it was promoted largely at the beginning through celebrities. So Charles Rosier, I guess his fiance was a sister-in-law to a model named Carla Bruni, and so she let a lot of people know about the product. And then the person that they ended up hiring as the CEO for their company was apparently an in-law for Melanie Griffith, and so she was so impressed with it that she brought it back to LA and told everyone that she knew about it and gave away a whole bunch of it to those people. And then she got her daughter, who is Dakota Johnson, and her ex-husband, who is Don Johnson, to tell people that they knew about it. And then after that, word just started to spread really fast. So there's a couple of things that are a little bit unclear to me about this particular story. The first thing is whether or not they're actually trying to finance the research for that burn cream. I'm not sure if that's the case, and really I kind of think that no matter how much of this cream that they are selling, probably it's not going to be enough money to finance that burn research. But I still think that if that is really a successful cream and that it would help burn victims, that would be really good for someone to step in and do that, if that's really the case. And the other thing that I'm not sure about from that story is how similar this anti-aging cream is to the burn cream. So the main ingredient that they say is the driver in the Augustinus Botter wrinkle cream, that is called TFC 8, which is trigger factor complex 8. And the stuff that was in the original burn cream, to my understanding, was TFC 1. And so it certainly is the case that the anti-aging creams have some ingredients in them that you probably wouldn't want to put on a third-degree burn, that might be really bad. But how similar the actual ingredient, the peptide, is that seems to be the driver for this, I'm not sure at all about that. And that is not something that I have seen them talk about at all. And I can kind of see why, because if this really is a peptide that does anything and it really does make a difference and it has the potential to be used in a medical setting, then you probably wouldn't want to be positioning it as something that you're just selling in an over-the-counter cream. And it's also the case that if you did share that information, that you might have regulatory people come after you and tell you that you can't sell it anymore. So I kind of feel like this is something that I see in the beauty industry in general, that what your goal is to tread this fine line between not making any claims that seem like they're too good, but on the other hand, you don't want to make people think that the cream doesn't do anything. So it feels like smoke and mirrors to me, and yet I kind of feel like it might be the case that some of the products that are being sold by some of these companies might have some actual potential to them, but a lot of why why their evidence is not convincing is because they don't, I think, want it to be too convincing because they don't want to draw any regulatory attention. Now, something that Professor Botter has said is that the non-medical skincare product is actually the most scientifically advanced, as it has to navigate the body's natural healing code differently, as there isn't any open wound and no need for local stimulation. We found a solution to provide the right nutrients for the skin's intrinsic stem cells. So what the main driving ingredient in these products seems to be is a proprietary peptide that is called oligopeptide 177, and this does seem to only be used in Augustinus Bader products. So what seems to be suggested here is that the peptide and the other ingredients that are in these creams serve as a signal to the body's own progenitor cells, which are a downstream version from stem cells that the body is already making. So everyone from the company seems to be adamant that there were no stem cells that were actually used in creating these products, and that rather that they are using a signaling mechanism to get your own stem cells or to work better. Now, of course, when we're talking about peptides, there are a lot of other peptides that are on the market. So, for instance, there's a lot of products right now that include a peptide that is called palmitoyl tripeptide 1, which is supposed to help with skin repair and wrinkles and lip plumping and things like that. Another famous peptide is called Matrixyl, which was developed by a team associated with the skincare company number 7. And so that is in a lot of different products. And then you can see a lot if you look at ingredient lists, you can see a lot of other peptides as well. So I don't feel like there's a lot of questions about whether or not peptides are real or whether they actually can be helpful in terms of prompting the cells in the skin or the cells in the body to act in more healthful and better ways. But I do think that there's a lot of questions that I have in terms of which of these peptides are the most effective, how much of these peptides need to be in a product for it to have any effect, whether the different peptides are helpful for different things, whether combinations of peptides can be more helpful than using single ones, and really whether any of these products have enough of the peptides in them to be doing anything. So sometimes when I look at an ingredient list, it will have 50 or 100 ingredients in it, and a lot of those are actives. And my question here is, are really all of those actives really in large enough quantity to do it? And how can we know? Well, we can't know. They're not telling you how much of it is in there. And one thing that I found out is that if on an ingredient list, if an item is less than 1% of the formula, then it doesn't have to be in descending order of amount that's in the product. So even if something is halfway up on an ingredient list, that doesn't mean that there's really any appreciable amount of that in the product at all. So in this case, we really don't know what oligopeptide 177 is. We don't know how it works. We don't know what effect it's having. We don't know how much of it is in all of these different products. And so it's very difficult to have any sense of whether or not these products actually should work. And really, I think the reasonable way to go about doing this is to actually try the products and see if you think that they are making a difference. Now, in terms of this celebrity marketing, I would typically be very skeptical about celebrity marketing, and I really am, except for the fact that these people actually do have a really high motivation to look good and to maintain or improve their appearance for the sake of their job. And they also have some money to spend on some different things, and probably they're not all that motivated to say, oh, this cream helped me, and that I've been using it, and this is my holy grail, if that actually hasn't been doing anything. So when people like this actually do say things, I don't necessarily think that that's any kind of incontrovertible evidence, but it makes me not think that it's totally irrelevant either. So less convincingly to me, on the Augustinus Bader website, they do report some results of a small-scale clinical study and also of a small-scale consumer perception study. I, in generally, do really just ignore those kinds of results that are on websites. You know, my training is in research, and those kinds of research results, they don't provide you any information about the study. They don't seem to have had a control group. They're very small groups of people, and so even if they did a study where there was a success, it's very hard to be able to tell based on what they typically put on the websites in terms of those results. So I just really ignore those. Okay, so now I'm going to insert some footage that I took the other day when the light was a lot better of my face really close up. So before I took this footage, I just totally washed my face, and I didn't put on any moisturizer on either side of my face or any other skincare products. I just washed my face with my regular Typology cleanser, and then that is it. And I tried to get really close to the camera, and I tried to shoot my face at different angles so that you could see both sides. And I took some pictures of my face at rest, and then some pictures smiling so that you could see the differences in terms of the expression lines. And in that footage, I did have one ring light that was right in front of me to try to serve as a little bit of a fill light, but other than that, it's natural light. And no filters. Now, as I say, this product was first introduced in 2018, and when Augustinus Bader first introduced this product, they were suggesting that you just needed to use just this one product and you didn't have to use any other skincare, except for maybe like a cleanser. And I think that they were probably just positioning it that way because they felt like if people are going to be spending this much money on a particular product, then if they stopped using the other stuff, that they would have more money to spend on this product. I am not sure that this is how people that can afford this cream really think. I think that it's probably more the case that if people have already been using skincare and they think that it's been helpful for them, they probably are going to be a little bit disinclined to discontinue all of those products and just take a leap of faith that this one particular product is going to replace all of them. Or at least that's the way that I felt. And they do seem to have changed, and I don't see anything that they're recommending now that is suggesting that you not use anything else besides this product. And instead, what they suggest on their website is that if you are going to use other products, that you put the Augustinus Bader cream down first and then let it sink in for a while, and then put whatever else you want to use on the top of that. And that is what I have been doing. So I think that for me, it would have become really obvious, really fast, if I had tried to use just this cream and nothing else, because I do typically use quite a lot of moisturizers and oils and things like sodium hyaluronate serums on my skin. And my skin does seem to really benefit from those larger amounts of those ingredients. So oftentimes what I will do is I will choose a fairly rich cream, and then I will add some facial oil to it, and I will add a squirt or two of serum and mix it together and then put this on my face. And I think that if I do that, then my face is definitely in much better shape, of course, provided that there's not irritating ingredients in those products. And I guess I could have used enough of the Augustinus Bader product that would have given me that much moisture, but it would have required a whole lot more of the product, and that would have gotten really prohibitively expensive really fast. So I feel more like I'm using this as a serum, that I'm using it just for the active ingredients in it, and I just put a smaller amount down, and then I'm using my regular moisturizers to give my face the moisturization and the hydration that it needs. Now, one thing that they do say is that the Augustinus butter cream is supposed to actually help your skin to be less dry and to need less moisture. Do I think that is the case? You know, I think that this winter my skin has been in better shape and that I haven't needed to use quite as much heavy-duty moisturizer as I did last winter, but I am not so sure I can attribute that to the Augustinus butter cream because I don't feel like it's really been different on the two different sides of my face. Although that does bring up another point, and that is the question of whether or not using the cream on one side of my face could be helpful on the other side. So it certainly is the case that cells can talk to one another, and I know that, for instance, fungi like mushrooms can talk to one another, and bacteria can talk to one another. And so I wonder a little bit if I put this cream on one side of my face and the cells there get a signal to do something, if the cells on that side of the face might not be able to communicate to the other side, cells on the other side of my face, that would be a good idea too. I didn't really think about that when I was designing this experiment, and I still don't know if that's something that could be affecting things, but I guess that that's something to keep in mind. So one more thing that I will throw in here is some speculation that I read at one point on how these creams might be working, and I have no idea whatsoever if this has any legitimacy to it, but I just thought I would throw it in here because I'm still a little perplexed how this is working myself. So in 2019, there was an article that was in a publication called The Cut, which is part of New York Magazine, and they were talking about the Augustinus butter cream, which was new on the market at the time, and they talked to a cosmetic chemist and a cosmetic formulator, and this person pointed to an article from, I think, 2016, where Augustinus butter was the last author, which is usually the lead author, on a paper that looked at the use of erythropoietin cream for burn victims. So this cosmetic chemist suggested that perhaps this is what is going on with the Augustinus butter creams. And the article says the Augustinus butter products don't seem to contain erythropoietin, but instead, according to their claims, are either a fragment of it, a peptide fragment of the glycoprotein, or a mixture of peptides that mimic some of erythropoietin's effects. So I haven't seen anything about erythropoietin mentioned at all by anyone who works for Augustinus butter or on their website, so I don't know if there's any legitimacy in that at all. So now I thought I would show you one more piece of evidence that might allow you to get a better sense of whether or not you think that there's actually been change on one side of my face, or whether one side of my face looks different. So what I decided to do was to take a photograph of myself without any makeup, and so you can see a bunch of the photos that I took, and I just picked one at random, and then I cut it in half. And for each side of my face, I flipped it, and so then I put that side of the face with the flipped version of it. So in the photo on the left here, you have two sides of my face that are identical, and that is the side that I did not use the cream on. And then on the right side, you have two sides of my face that are identical, and that is the side of my face that I did use the cream on. I do think that one thing that my own eye does when I see two halves of people's face, regardless of how asymmetrical they might be, my mind just kind of makes adjustments so that they actually look like they are more symmetrical, because it's too distracting for them to be asymmetrical. And so it can be kind of hard for me to look at a picture and say, this half of the face looks different than the other half. So I thought that if I created two full faces and one of them just had the left side of my face and one of them just had the right side of my face, then it might be easier to compare. And I actually think that that has been much, much easier to compare, and that I really look like two different people in these pictures. And because of that, I can try to compare and say, what are the differences here? And this is actually an exercise that I have done earlier in my life, but I do think that the differences that I'm seeing right now tend to be categorically different than the differences that I have seen when I've done this in the past, meaning earlier in my life before I started this experiment. So what I want to say now is that I don't really have any more information than you do at this point in terms of whether or not these two halves of my face look different or whether or not there have been any changes. I do have access to looking in the mirror, but I feel like the footage that I have shot and the pictures that I have taken have been much more informative to me than looking in the mirror. That is a very difficult thing to do, to see which sides of your face look different in the mirror. And so I don't want to suggest that you should listen to my take on this, and rather I'll just share with you what I'm seeing, and then you can let me know if you are seeing that or if you're seeing something totally different. And if you are seeing something totally different, then I definitely want to know about that. But what I mostly think is the most obvious to me when I look at these two different images is that I feel that the one on the left is far more puffy and kind of unhealthy looking than the one on the right. And I think that if I look at my cheeks look much more puffy. If I look at my eyes, there's an awful lot of puffiness both on the top part and the bottom part. And as a result, my eyes look much more hooded on that side. And as a result of that, then I think that my eyes look much smaller. So I was really surprised that there might be that much of a difference and that that's what the difference would be. I do feel like I was pretty aware, and I do spend a lot of time looking at myself when I edit these videos. I do feel like my face was a lot puffier recently than it has been at some points in my life, and that is something that I'm not entirely happy about. But the idea that a cream that I might put on it conceivably could have some kind of an effect on that, that is something that I didn't even really think about. I was thinking that this was going to be helpful for things like crow's feet wrinkles around my eyes, or wrinkles near my mouth, or maybe allowing my skin to become a bit clearer or to have less discoloration. But I wasn't really thinking about this edema issue at all. And when I look at these two images, what I really feel like is that the one on the left really looks quite a bit more unhealthy. So unhealthy in the way that I would expect that someone that looked like that would be eating a lot of fast food, even though I never eat food like that. And also unhealthy in the kind of person that probably is not going to be living for a lot longer. So that's a little discouraging. But then when I read the website a little bit more, what I did see is that there's a body cream that they sell, and they did do a study with that. And for the body cream, they did say that that is supposed to help with noticeably with cellulite. Now, again, I don't know that I believe in these studies, but they do seem to be under the impression that this body cream can help with cellulite. And I kind of feel like cellulite and edema are related in that they both have to do with things like lymphatic drainage. And so maybe I shouldn't have been so surprised after all, but it certainly was a surprise to me to take a look at these two pictures that seem to be so clearly different from one another in my view. Now, one thing that I actually do think might have helpfulness with regard to puffiness is caffeine. So this is one of the first things that I found when I was trying to find things that would make my under eye area look better. And that is when I started to use some eye creams that had caffeine in them, that this really did help quite a lot with the puffiness. And that the extent to which the puffiness went away or came back did seem to be pretty highly correlated with how recently I had been using that caffeine cream. So I am not seeing any ingredients in the Augustinus butter cream that contain caffeine, and I do use other products with caffeine, but I do use them on both sides of my face. But one thing that I do see in the Augustinus butter cream is an ingredient that is called Sesambium seed oil. And when I looked this up, it does have some potential benefits that it seemed like they could be related to issues of swelling and edema and healthfulness of the lymphatic system, maybe. So I don't know that there have been good studies on this, so it's all really just speculation and the experience of herbal practitioners. But I think that it could be that this is related to what has happened to my face, if indeed something has happened to my face. Now, if that is the case and the changes in my face are related to this particular oil, then that would be great, because then maybe I wouldn't have to buy this expensive cream anymore, and I could just buy that oil, which is probably a lot less expensive. Whereas if we're thinking that the changes were related to that proprietary peptide, then that means that I have to keep buying the cream if I want to keep using that particular ingredient. So I don't know the answer to that, and this is something that I think that I would like to look into a little bit more. So let's go back again and look at these two different versions of me. And another thing that I think I see in these pictures is that the side that is on the left does seem like it's a little bit more blotchy to me. And I feel like the texture looks a little bit more uneven. I don't feel like it's a dramatic difference, and I don't feel like my skin was that blotchy and uneven to begin with. I think my skin was in quite bad shape before I started to really be very picky about not using anything on my skin that is irritating to it. So it hasn't been in that bad a shape to begin with, but I do think there's a little bit of a difference in that, and that is definitely consistent with what they say may make a difference. And again, I don't feel like there's that many like darkish spots on my face at all, but I think that insofar as I look very carefully, I think that there may be some brownish spots that are in the left-hand picture that are fairly faint, but that aren't there at all in the right-hand picture. Now, on the other hand, when I look at the photograph on the right, I'm not all that sure that the Augustinus butter cream has really helped with my wrinkles as much as I would like. So I still feel like there are some wrinkles next to my eyes. I still feel like there's this wrinkle here in my forehead that has not gone away. And I think if anything, these wrinkles that are down here, which I guess are sometimes called marionette lines, I think those might have actually gotten worse over the past year. So I am not all that sure that the picture on the right-hand side that I look a lot younger than I actually am. You know, it's a little bit perplexing now to try to guess people's age, because so many of the people that we use as reference points are celebrities who have had a ton of work done on their face, and I haven't had anything like that. So I don't know if I look younger or older than people expect someone who is almost 60 to look. What I will say is that I think that I look an awfully lot like my grandmother looked when she was when it was the late 1960s and she was in her late 50s and early 60s. And I think that, I'm not sure that she looked a lot younger than her actual age, but I do kind of feel like she looked healthy. And she actually was a healthy person, and she worked full-time at the greenhouse that she owned until she was in her late 80s, and then she lived fairly healthfully in terms of her mind being in pretty good shape, and her body, except for osteoporosis, until her late 90s. And I think that in the pictures that I had of her, she did look healthy when she was in her late 50s and early 60s. And I feel like on that right side picture that I look an awfully lot like she did in terms of the healthfulness. Whereas the picture on the left-hand side, I'm not sure that that picture looks like I'm older, but I do feel like it looks a lot less healthy. So that is kind of a concern to me. And it actually is enough of a concern that it makes me even more determined that I think it's worthwhile to continue this experiment and try that cream on that other side. Now, I don't think that probably it's the case that even that if that cream makes the left side of the left picture look like it is healthier, that actually means that I will be healthy. But I also think that looking healthy and that doing things for your skin that actually are improving the health, if that is what is happening here, that has to be a good thing. And certainly I would think that it is a better thing than shooting botulism toxin into your face. So it does make me want to invest a bit of money into continuing this experiment. And I do think it's consistent with what Professor Botter typically says about this cream and how it works. So for instance, he says that the whole idea is that it's improving the health, and that's why it is functioning better, and it's not just supposed to be something that is tricking the eye. And he also does talk about the fact that this is helpful not only with regard to the effects of aging, but also with the effects of pollution. So what I think that I do want to do now is to move on and to start using this cream on both sides of my face. I did think a little bit about the idea that I should switch sides, and instead of using it on this side, I should start using it on this side and see what happens. But one thing that he said is that just because you stop using the cream doesn't mean that you're going to lose all of the benefits, so that wouldn't exactly be a controlled experiment anyway. I think that it would be better for me to continue to use the product on this side and then to use it on the other side and see if how quickly it takes for them to look the same if they do end up looking the same. And it also admittedly is the case that I don't really want to stop using this cream because I'm kind of impressed so far at what I'm seeing. So we will see if it makes a further difference as time goes on. So on the website, it does say that you shouldn't really expect to see anything happening until 4 weeks, and you're probably not going to get the peak in terms of what you'll experience for at least 3 months. Now, I have certainly heard of some people that say, oh, I tried the cream for a couple of days, and I don't think it did anything for me, but that's not really what it's supposed to be doing. It's not supposed to be short-term. It's supposed to be a long-term change in the whole functioning of the way that the cells are working. And I do think that for me, for the first month, and you can take a look again at those pictures, that I don't think that I really saw any changes at all for at least a month. And then it took a long time before I became confident at all that there was actually something different. So I kind of think that if you're not going to commit to a longer term usage of this product, it's probably not really that worth using. So while I was editing this video, I took the photo that I was planning to use for the thumbnail and I posted that on my personal Facebook page and asked people which side of my face they thought looked better. And of the 45 people that responded, 41 said that they thought that the right side of my face, which is the side that I did use the Augustinus butter product on, looked better. 3 people said that they thought the side of my face that I did not use the cream on looked better, and 1 person said that there was no difference. Now, I did the same thing on YouTube, but I think I made a bit of a mistake because the photos turned out to be quite small, and then when people looked at them on their phone, I think it was difficult for them to tell very much about what my face looked like in the pictures. And a number of people did complain about that. But nonetheless, of the people that responded, 60% said that the side of my face where I used the Augustinus butter cream was better. 34% said that the left side of my face where I did not use the cream looked better, and 6% said neither side looked better. So let's talk briefly about all of the products that Augustinus butter offers. So the rich cream and the regular cream, those were the first 2 products that they offered. And the rich cream, I believe, was reformulated in 2021 or so, a couple of years ago. One reason that I know that is because there is a YouTuber named Alice in the Rabbit Hole, and she said that she had a sample of it, and she was just amazed at the difference that it made on her face. And then she purchased the product, and the cream immediately broke her out and made her face like turn all bright red. And so she looked at the ingredient list and she found out that they had reformulated it. So Alice in the Rabbit Hole suggested that she thought that maybe the reason was because of the addition of that oil, which is called Cisaembrio Ireo seed oil. Now, I have not had any negative reactions to this product at all, as I say, but I do think that especially for people who have sensitive skin, or maybe even if you don't usually have sensitive skin, that this would be a product that I would really want to have a backup plan if my skin were to react negatively to it. Now, the rich cream, it is more rich than the other products. I wouldn't say it's the most rich cream that I have ever used. It does contain sunflower seed oil, shea butter, squalane, argan oil, avocado oil, evening primrose oil, and sodium hyaluronate in it, and then some caprolate and olive oil derivatives. But again, I think this is not necessarily as rich as it seems. There are smaller amounts of most of those oils in it, And so I think that just anticipating using this as a serum, and that if you do have dry skin, I don't think it's at all going to be too rich for your skin, and that you'll probably need to be using some other things on top of it. Oh, and this cream also has a tripeptide in it called tripeptide 8, in addition to the proprietary peptide, which is oligopeptide 177. Now, the cream is the other original product that they released, and this one has less oils in it. They do still list a few oils like shea butter, squalane, and sunflower oil, but I think they're in smaller amounts. The main difference between these products, in my opinion, is first of all, the cream contains retinol palmitate, which is a form of retinol, and I have decided just not to use retinol at all, so that would be a reason that I would not get this cream. This cream also does include propylene glycol in it, and this is an ingredient that is known to be sensitizing for many people. There's also alcohol listed on the ingredient list, and there's phenoxyethanol. Now, I did get a sample of the cream, and the small sample that I used, my skin seemed to be fine with it, so I was kind of surprised about that. But it's also possible that if I used it for a longer period of time, that my skin might become more sensitized to it. I also got a sample of the serum, but I did not find that to be irritating either. This one does have the Sisymbrium ereo seed oil in it, also squalane, sodium hyaluronate, resveratrol, fermented ingredients, some vitamin C, and it doesn't have that peptide 8 in it, just the proprietary one. So if you don't want to put any oil in your face, or you want to put on a minimum amount of oil, then this could be one to consider maybe, and my face seemed fine with it. I have also tried the Augustinus Butter eye cream. I got a sample of that through Sephora with my points, and I think that it worked fine for me in terms of not irritating my eyes, but I'm not feeling like the regular rich cream is irritating my eyes either, and the eye cream is much, much more expensive on a per gram basis than the rich cream is. I don't know if it has more of the proprietary peptide in it. I'm not seeing any other ingredients in it that look particularly special that I can't get from anywhere else, so I'm not real motivated to buy that one at this point. And the next product is called the Ultimate Soothing Cream, which sounds like it's kind of a barrier repair cream, and they are suggesting that you can use it for winter use or on irritated skin, and that has black cumin oil, evening primrose oil, niacinamide, shea butter, and then that Sisymbrium ereo seed oil. And it just has the proprietary peptide, not any others. I might consider buying that product for winter use at some point. And then there's a light cream, which is said to target the root causes of overactive sebum while offering antioxidant protection against pollution and other environmental triggers of unwanted shine. And there's not really any oil in that one at all, except for the Sisymbrium ereo seed oil. Not on Sephora, but on the company website, and I also saw this on Nordstrom, is a face oil, and they have a quiz where you can get them to tell you which products might be best for you. And when I take that quiz, and when I tell them I have sensitive skin and mature skin and dry skin, they always recommend that oil is the #1 product. So I think that what they're suggesting is that if you have dry skin, that this is probably going to be a safer product in terms of being the least likely to make you break out. And I think that sounds pretty reasonable because it has some pretty good quality oils in it. And I'm not seeing any ingredients in it that look like they're probably going to be problematic for most people. On the Nordstrom site, you could get 1/3 of an ounce of this for $97. You could try it out, and you could take it back to Nordstrom. And sometimes the Augustinus Butter site has some sales on it, or at least they did have a sale over the holiday season this past December. And so it might be worth it someday to purchase something from the Augustinus Butter site, as long as you either can get them to tell you in advance they'll take it back, or unless you're sure you're not going to want to take it back because you know that it doesn't irritate you. And then in terms of other facial treatment products, They have an essence which has hydroxy acids in it, so if you are interested in a hydroxy acid product and you don't, especially if you don't want to use any kind of cream or anything, that could be a substitute to get exposure to the proprietary peptide. There's a face mask which looks like it has traditional Chinese medicine type of herbs in it, so depending on how you do with those kinds of herbs, that could be something to consider. There's a retinol cream. Now I wouldn't use that one because I'm avoiding retinol. And there's a lip balm. Now I think if they could offer a lip balm that would actually be helpful for the lips, that they might be able to sell a lot of it on Sephora, but this one is not even for sale on Sephora, and I'm not sure that this is a great lip balm. Now, in terms of cleansers, actually, there's a cleanser that's sold on Sephora, which is like a cream cleanser. That one actually gets very, very good reviews on Sephora. People seem to be crazy about that. And it's only $73, so with the 20% discount, I'm kind of thinking that I should try that one next. And then on the website, they have a cleansing balm that I wouldn't mind trying, and they also have a foamy cleanser. And then there's that body cream, which is supposed to be helpful for cellulite. I'm a little bit interested in trying that body cream and maybe trying it on my abdomen maybe, or maybe my upper arms to see if it makes a difference for that. That's like $200, so it's a little bit more expensive, but you do get a larger amount of it. Not on the Sephora site, but on the Augustinus Bader website, there is a body cleanser, a body oil, a body lotion, and a hand treatment. And I actually am a little bit interested in the hand treatment. It is not too expensive, and I think that that is something that I could try on one hand and do a comparison after a period of time to see if it makes a difference. And I do think that it is the case that for many people that as you get older that it does show on your hands, so that could be something that might be worth putting a little bit of attention to. They have an eyebrow and eyelash serum, but I'm really not sure that I want to spend that much money, and I wonder if just putting a little bit of that cream in my eyebrows is giving me as much help as I am going to get. I do have a eyebrow serum from Typology that I have been thinking about using that has castor oil and some other ingredients in it, so I think I need to give that a good try to see if it makes a difference at this point, and then maybe think about the Augustinus Bader products somehow later down the line. Now, in terms of hair products, they have a shampoo and a conditioner, and I did get little samples of those, but then I realized that those have rose geranium oil in them, and I am actually allergic to rose geranium oil. And then there's a couple of other hair products that also do not have the rose geranium oil in them, but I'm not sure that the reviews are good enough that I'm ready to spring for them at this point. And then finally, Victoria Beckham offers two products that are made by Augustinus Bader and that are listed as having the TFC8 in them, which means that they do contain that proprietary peptide. One of them is the primer. That was the first product that I ever heard of or tried from Augustinus Bader. It is a little bit less expensive than some of the Augustinus Bader creams, but it certainly is not cheap. That one does contain propylene glycol in it and a few other ingredients that I'm a little bit unsure about. My experience with that was that it actually worked okay for me at the beginning, and I thought it was a nice primer. After about 9 months or so had gone by, I hadn't tried it for a while, and I did try it again, and at that point it did irritate my face enough that I didn't want to use it. I passed that on to a friend of mine who is about my age and who also has sensitive skin, and she actually liked it. She said it wasn't bothersome to her at all, and she finished up that container quite quickly, and she ordered another container from the company. And then in addition, Victoria Beckham has a cell rejuvenating power serum, which has a variety of additional ingredients, including niacinamide, sodium hyaluronate, hyaluronic acid, and a fermented ingredient in addition to the TFC8, and I have not tried that one. So thank you very much for watching all the way to the end of the video. And as I say, if you have any opinions in terms of what you think with regard to whether my face has changed or whether or not both sides of my face look different from one another, then I hope that you will share that with me because I am really interested in what you think. In addition, if there are any products that you think that you would like to see me purchase and try out, then I would be open to that possibility. And I also would like to know if you have purchased any of the products yourself, or if you purchase any in the future. I want to find out what your experiences with the Augustinus butter products might be, because hopefully we can all share that information and learn from one another. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, then I hope you will go ahead and do that. And again, if you do actually make a purchase of one of these items or something else, then I hope that you will think about using my links, because that can be really helpful financially in terms of allowing me to try more things and let you know what I think of them. So thank you very much for watching, and Coco and I love you very much. Goodbye.